record, and yeah, Phil, over to you.
So most of my work in the last week or so has been on personas and profiles. And I took some of your feedback in that it was a bit too complicated to start with. So I started off with this idea of Chimera is your holochain experience. So I made this cool logo for you. And so now what I've got is the personas and profiles is actually running in holochain. So I've got two instances of Chimera running. This is me on the left and Arthur on the right. And if we go and look at the personas for me, you can see these are my ones. And same for Arthur. There's Arthur. All right. So running independently. I've also been working on the profile stuff. So go look at the bigger now. Profiles. So these actually match up to what's in the personas, and now you can do things like upload new avatars, that kind of thing. Done. Right, so that's all in there. And I've just started working on the idea of groups for chatting to each other and being able to do direct messages. So here you can see I've got a list of friends with their availability, and I can switch to different groups. So like this. And then what's going to happen is when you open an application, so CRISPR itself has sub apps. One of them is this Kanban app. So you'll be able to assign. So what I've done is in the anchors crate now, every time someone uses the anchor, so there's now a list of agents maintained in every DHT. So that because I want this to be put into 2020 so we don't have to manage it in anchors, but there's no way to actually get the list of agent entries currently. So I've linked them using an anchor. And the idea of that is that when you go into one of your applications, so let's say, so the person, I'll come back to that. So with an app, you'll be able to, today, hopefully, there'll be a new button up here. And what that'll say, that the idea of that is that do you want to be able to know who else is in the DHT? Because all the agent IDs are in there in every single DHT, but a hash is useless, right? It doesn't actually tell me that that's Alexander or that's Sid, right? It's just like, here's a hash. So if you want to be able to identify people in your DHT, there'll be a button up here, and that will add in a profile, which will have a minimum of an avatar and a handle. So that then when you're doing things like, for whatever reason you want to identify people, you can put that in. And that'll be automated for you. So that should be done today, tomorrow. Let's just chat. Okay, yeah, cool. So Nicholas is asking how I did the different users. So have a look at some code. I'm running, so what I've got is I'm using Chimera, which is the testing framework, to create a bunch of users. So these are the 4 users that are being done here. And then they, because Chimera gives each individual, when you set it up with Sim2H to run, what happens is that each player gets their own conductor, and then Sim2H actually does the communication between the individual conductors. So the nice thing about that is that then you can copy it over after Chimera is finished, and it gives you these conductor config files. And you'll see that each one has got all the DNAs that were installed, all the different instances, and an individual port somewhere here. So the first one's 33,000. Next one is 33,001. So then when I run all of these conductors, which is in the package file, I can run each individual agent with its own conductor, and it uses SIM2H to communicate between the four. So that's how I've managed to get 2 different agents running on the front end, because they're both connected to different ports. Does that answer your question, Nicholas?
Yes,
yeah.
Thanks.
Cool, awesome. All right, where were we? Trying to figure what I was talking about now. All right, so yeah, the modeler, so what you'll do is you'll be on the model and you'll go, right, for this particular app, I'd like to be able to identify people in the app. And then when you do that, you'll then get another group down here. So this will be the Kanban app or group. And when you switch to that, it'll populate with all of the people in that DHT, which you'll then be able to communicate with as well. So the idea of that is that you have all these different DHTs or all these different networks that you're part of. And as you switch between using them in context, so if I go from here to my record app, then I will now have the list of people in that group, which will be the list of music producers that I work with. That kind of idea. So the people that you can talk to are contextually available based on the app that you're working on. And that's all pretty much done automatically for you in this app. Right, so let's have a look at some of the other cool stuff I did. So personal information. You can now have multiple entry types in your models, and they all link up properly. I haven't quite got the layout working exactly as I want it, but you get the idea. And what that does is that creates one lib file with both types in it, and then all of the available questions on here. And you see you've got this new functions now out of the anchors. So when you create an anchor, so if I create this anchor here, called personas personal, the anchors crate will automatically create this anchor if it's not there, which is personas with no text, and automatically create the root anchor if that's not there. And then what happens is every time you either retrieve an anchor or look for an anchor, it'll automatically create the anchors, the agent link for you if it's not already there. Which means that you can then list all the agents out of there. And the idea of anchor tags and anchor type tags is that, see how when we put this anchor in called personas, it's tagged personas off the root one. So you don't have to get the entry and get the value out of here to get what this anchor is. That's another nice thing about anchors. Same thing with the actual anchor itself. You can see here that this one is personas personal and its tag on the link is personal. So all I need to do to get that anchor is just get the tag off. And I did that because each of the personas, if we go and look at the actual personas, these personas themselves are a list of fields. So you can add new fields and things to the persona. So the persona itself is actually an anchor with a list of fields hanging off it, because that's it's agent centric, because that's up to me what fields I put in my persona. It's got nothing to do with the app developer. And I can control that as much as I like. The same thing is going to happen with profiles too. So we get back to profiles. You can see the same thing happens with profiles. So we have a profile here with all the different fields hanging off it. So this is a profile called for CRISPR, and then it'll have a bunch of fields hanging off it. Any questions on that?
Yeah. Hey, Phil. Could you just explain quickly the difference between a persona and a profile?
Yes, a profile is what the application gets. So we'll go back to here and look at the profiles. can see here, this profile has got my nickname and an avatar. But you see how it's mapped? This is actually my personal avatar, and I've allowed the CRISPR app access to it. Right? So what happens is that if I then go into personas and I change that avatar into something else, let's get rid of that, upload something else. I don't know if I've actually finished this bit, but we'll see. No, I don't think I have, but we'll see. No, I haven't quite finished that bit. But the idea is that then, because I changed my personal avatar, both of these profiles would have updated because it's from a mapped location. The other thing is too, that on the profile, thought of another thing I've got to show you too. On the profile, there's like a link contract. So that says, for my nickname, I'm going to allow the application called CRISPR to store a copy of that name, and it'll actually say philip.beadle, or you can do request, which says you can only store a hash to the actual answer, to the actual thing, and you need to send me a bridged request for that result, for that answer.
I had some interest here about what is the work that you need to do so it refreshes with the new image? What is it left?
Oh, I just haven't implemented update yet. So all the DNAs are all there, just haven't implemented the front end part to actually update the result into the profile. Yeah, so that'll be fairly simple. I'm kind of doing that at the same time as I'm doing this listing of the profiles, because I actually changed the design of how personas works to make it much simpler than we documented.
So the bit about your previous contacts or friends showing up in new apps, is that, like, do you have a, like, the way you've designed it, can someone choose which app they want their contacts shown to? So for example, I would like my friends from Holopunk to show up in the chat app. Like, is that how you designed it? Or does everyone have ever interacted?
When you're in here, then you would have a list of people for this app.
Yeah, but there was this bit, you had a little pop-up which allowed you to see contacts from other, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, because that's just saying, all right, we are in this context, so that's what you want to do, but I can just switch it to whatever one I want as well. It's kind of just like a helper.
I'm just wondering, because that could be an interesting way to drive discovery in an app. So as you enter a new app, like you're seeing, yeah,
exactly. So I could be in this app, which is the producers, and then I could invite them to another app. That's exactly what this is for. I'm glad you saw that, because that's how I thought of it, as like the way to introduce people is you'll be able to click on here and go invite, and then invite them to another DHT.
Yeah, that is cool. And there's, I think there's a few more things, like you could push, like those could become like your trusted bridging nodes as well. Like there's people you
there's
trust.
all that other stuff.
Exactly. Cool.
The one thing I have completed is the ability to manage the list of fields. So if you click on this little doodah here, you can now manage fields. So I don't know, let's give it another field. We'll call it time zone, if we want a better word. And give it a different, whatever it is, and whether it's required, save. There you go. Time zone is now in there. So this is actually, I've actually built all of these apps with CRISPR. So I'm kind of, as I'm building it, I'm changing how it works, but like I'm actually using this to build stuff. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I had a question around this. So is this the environment in which you build the app as well as you use the app too? So you have to use the app within this environment every time?
You don't have to. This is just, well, I'm building Vue apps, Vue front end, DNA back end. And if you want to use Vue, that this is a nice way to do it. But you can do what you like with it. This will generate DNA for you, no problem. It dumps out.
So Phil, if you've got your app running in Hollow, I think I understand it right, that Hollow is like the bridge between the web and Hollow chain.
Yep.
So you've built an app using CRISPR. You then want to have that running on Hollow because you don't want to assume that people have installed CRISPR on their own machine.
Anything. It's, and I'll show you the magic, right? This is the magic thing here. Where is it? Shit, what did I do? Store. So this little puppy here. I'm just using Electron because I'm writing to the local files with CRISPR, but all the other apps don't need that. So very soon I'm going to have a build process that separates the two. So you can create Chimera for Hollow, which is just the web. It's just browser based, no Electron. And then there'll be the Electron version as well. So, and what happens is that the HC web client is the one that detects, hang on, you're running through Hollow. So we need to do the key generation, all that kind of management stuff differently than if you're running directly on Holochain. So as a developer, you literally don't have to do anything. The only thing is you need to provide, no, you don't even need to do that now. What will happen is if it's running on Hollow, it detects, right, I'm running on Hollow, so you need to log in with your email and password, and then it gets your keys for you. Otherwise, it just uses a local store for your keys.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah, it's super cool.
If for some, I guess an underlying question that was just or to what was just mentioned was, if I want to run the view somehow somewhere else in my browser or in any other interface, how would I do that? Just find the port where it's running, or how do I
just run it as just run it in. Yeah, I'm using the Electron builder, but you can just use what is it here? Instead of running Electron build, you just run serve. And then it runs it in a browser. It's exactly the same. Super easy. So what I'm going to do is there'll be part of the build process will be an Electron app and also a compiled Vue app, which will just run on a web server. I did one more thing. Oh, that's right. So if we go and look at one of these, no, not that one. Who's got Kanban? Here we go. Check this out. You can now go for WYSIWYG. Heading 3, blah, blah, code. Yeah. Make it into a code block. All that kind of cool stuff. Yeah, so there you go. Now you got full WYSIWYG in the Kanban, which all works. Oh yeah, and I also implemented the Chimera stuff. So if we go to, which one is the, go to, get your faces out of the way, here we go. If we go to tasks, and if we turn on Chimera, and if I've got an invite here, no, not that one. Maybe it's this one. Yep, right. So I can now, I've got an invite from Arthur. So again, Sid, what we were talking about how to invite people and how to organically grow your networks and that sort of things, and how to cross-pollinate from one DHT to another. This is another one. So Arthur's built a tasks, or he's either built it or using it. So he's got a tasks DHT that he's got out of the store, and he started adding some stuff into it. We're working together. He says, hey, let's work together on the tasks. I now add that into my UI, and I'm using the same DHT that he is because I just installed that. And now we can work together on the DHT. And then I'm like, hang on, I really want to do ratings. So I can just add in ratings, which is now installed another DHT for me. It's a unique DHT, which I'll show you how to do that because it's a really cool trick you can do in Triorama. You can create your own DHTs like this. So if you're not familiar with Triorama, it's our test framework for the DHTs. And so you get the DNA, which is up here somewhere. So it's compiled into this DNA file, and that's just the standard DNA. And then because I want individual ones for each player for their personal information, when you configure it, you can smash in a UUID. And that'll make sure that the DNA, so the DNA for this user is different to everybody else. So there's no possibility of cross, of the DHTs communicating because they're all individual.
So is it that the ratings sit on a separate DHT, or I just fork into another DHT?
So there will be, I haven't got it here yet because I'm still working on that, but there'll be a ratings DNA like this one.
Yeah.
Right? Then when I do the install process, one of the parameters you can pass to install is the same thing, it's the UUID. Right? So even though this is like hard installed here, be the same thing. When you do the admin interface, have you done have you installed the DNA from the admin interface?
No.
Yeah, if you make an admin port, there's functions to install and that sort of stuff for DNA. So you give it the DNA that you want to install by path and any parameters, and that's sort of properties and names and stuff like that. And one of them can be something unique. And then that'll create a new DHT with only one node because that's just me running on it. And then when I want to invite you, I send you the same install parameters, and you can install it, and you'll get the same DHT.
Yeah, I've never thought about that pattern, but I think it's kind of cool because I could be, have a whole bunch of like a DHT just for my ratings of films, and then you show up and ask me for my recommendations.
Absolutely. So the idea is that next to this ratings thing, I'll just have like an average, and then if there's more of us using the same DHT, they'll put our own rating in, but then you can actually have separate DHTs of ratings as well. Same with tasks and stuff as well. So these are the tasks that I'm sharing with Arthur. I could go and add in tasks myself. Obviously and that would have my own separate list of tasks.
If I wanted to share only some of my personal, say, movie ratings with friends, is that possible without like kind of duplicating the data, like a sort of view? Is that at all possible?
No,
Just a thought
because
that occurred to me.
With the way that distributed hash tables work, you can't restrict the read. If they're part of the DHT, they can read everything in the read, because even though your UI doesn't allow it, I can just go in there with a text editor and have a look at it.
Technically, couldn't you do it with a capabilities grant or
again?
or just an
doesn't matter. But I can just hack into it with an LMDB reader, and I can read anything in the DHT. So that's why there's no. So if you go and look at the permissions on everything, pick any entity type, right? Permissions.
Or what if you pass it as an encrypted entry?
You can do that, but then you're in a whole world of pain for a whole lot of other things. If you don't want them to read it, don't share it to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you could just, if I have all my ratings and I want to, make some of them public to my friends, then I copy those into the friends DHT and I.
Well, you wouldn't even need to do that. You would have public ratings and private ratings, and then you yourself would see a combination of the two, which is where I'm going to with my thing called Freckles. I love coming up with application names. It seems so fun.
Yeah, well, why Freckles?
Why not? Oh, it's not here yet. All right. I like the word freckle. And that's just like a social media feed stream. So the way it's going to work is that everybody will have their own DHT of posts. And if I want to share them with you, Sid, then I would invite you to my DHT. And you'll be able to see those posts in that thread. And then if you've got one as well and we share back, then I would see your posts in that list as well.
I had a question while we were on the ratings part.
Yep.
So let's say you've added that part, the rating part, and which is a DHT. But then how is that relationship between that part being connected with your application, and how would that rating part know that relationship going forward?
Okay, good question. With a really, really easy answer. So let's go and look at the model for a rating. And I don't know if you probably noticed, but all my models are exactly the same at this point because I haven't been able to find a better one. So what you'll see here is that the ratings information, which is the rating ID, just a number, is linked to something, and I don't care what it is. So you can pass any piece of text in here, and then you'll be able to get the rating off that. So what happens is that when you add the ratings module to a note, this in here is the address of the note. And then what happens is go to parts. Oops. Right, here we go. The list of components is here, so that's how you can do tasks, ratings, or anything else you like. Because Vue has this really awesome pattern for being able to add components. And I just pass in the base thing that it's linked off, and that's just in this case it's the node ID. So all of the tasks are linked off the node ID, and all of the ratings are linked off the node ID as well. So that's why there's a pattern of so all the listing things is done off a base. So if you have a look at the code for that, you can do it in here, can't we? Code, handlers. You'll see that when you create a rating, it uses this thing called a base string, and it got that from the node that it's attached to. Right? And then what happens is it creates a new rating entry and then links it to that anchor. See the anchor? And then what happens is when you list them, you pass in the same thing. You pass in the same base, and you'll list all of the entries off that base.
Is this code dynamically generated when you add the ratings DHT to the notes application? Is that what happens?
No, when you add a new note, or when you add a new, we're just going to look at the task one, it makes a bit more sense. Right, so tasks down here. You have a list of tasks. So this is the task entry, and there's a whole bunch of those. Each one of those is linked to a note. So I've got one note with multiple tasks off it. It has the same note ID that is passed in there. So this code is, yeah, it's compile time and all built and then runs.
Yep.
I feel like this is a great pattern for, like I've been thinking about a reputation vault, just a bunch of DHTs to store ratings you've received and ratings you've given, and you carry that as you go from app to app. And that kind of becomes your engine to engage with different people within that new app.
Yeah.
And that's really, yeah, wow, that is nice.
Did I show you all the help last week as well?
The help?
Yeah, so every screen has help now. So if you don't know what to do, just hit the button at the top here and it tells you what to do.
Oh yeah, you covered that.
Yeah, all right, zone, cool. So,
Do we,
yeah.
do you think we could in the time that's left, just hash together a basic app right now? I don't know, something really simple.
Almost. It's still, I'm still manually creating these, but I can show you how it's together.
It could be something simple like a blogging app or
just a Hello World. Yeah, simple. Because even I was wondering the same question. Like, do you just go to the CRISPR and then the code starts from there? Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea is that you clone, right? So you start cloning in DHT. That's not finished yet because I'm still trying to get the personas and profile stuff work to make this work better. But all of these apps are using the same template code. So there's a which is still files at the moment, but they'll eventually be entries. So they all use this same code. And I've called it origins. What happens is that gets replaced by the name of your thing, like note, task, whatever. And then based on your permission, the permissions that you set, different code gets put in. So if it's, these things there, and then these are the different pieces to the lib file. So you've got the top part, any entry types that you have, multiple entry types there, and then the zones that you have for each of those entry types. And then the way this all gets put together is using here. So we have zones. So we have these. Where is it? Right, so we've got a zone template called origins. And it has a few things. It's got some starting code, zone code and declarations and things like that. And then items. So the items are, oops, no, hold on. Got these. So the items are these items in the tree here. And because they get updated based on the entry type as well and how many things you've got in your zone. And then you've got anchor types. So the anchors, all these anchors. So you can set up how you want your anchors linked together. So in this case, I don't have any anchors. I've only got anchor types because I'm not linking the fields to anything in particular. It's just a whole load of fields. Whereas if you go to something like personas, have a look in here. You can see I've actually got anchors as well. So that's a root anchor type anchor. And that's all configured in the anchor types. I'll show you that in a sec. And then entry types. So each of these things here. What are your entry types? What are the fields in there and that sort of thing. And then your permissions and field list are applied from here. So so all of these things are built with the same set of code. And then the way that you change the behavior of your actual individual entry types is the entry types themselves have a template as well, which at this point I've only got one because I've only needed one so far. But the idea is that you have this entry type, which has an empty set of fields because I don't know what it's going to be yet. And then the meta fields, which come from all the entries and headers and stuff like that. And then the code files. So you can see this all comes out of these origins, DNA origins, entry permissions files that we looked at before. Remember all this template code down here? That's what these are. And then if you've got things where you can change the permission, like this one, then that changes the code file that it picks up. So by default, it's going to pick up anyone, which is the anyone thing. But if you change it in the UI, it'll put in different code for you. Right, so that's the different code files. Right, and then you've got the item templates. So this is for the tree structure down the side here. And what happens is when you go to Has anybody actually used Vue much? Tell you what, scrap all your other shitty fucking JavaScript frameworks you've been using, kick them out the door, don't ever bother again. All right? Anybody who goes, oh, React's better than Vue has got no idea what they're talking about. All right. So what I do is based on the project ID, which is, so this one is the personas project, right? They've all got their own ID. I can then go and pull out, because each of the projects has a zone definition. Right. So let's look at a simple one like the notes. Where's that? But this stuff's all JSON files at the moment, but this is turning into templates, into entries as I move along. Right, so notes. You tell it the template of the zone that you want, and I know the template type name is called origin in there, and then the template that I want for the tree down the side, and then I define my entry types. So in this one, that's called note. It's going to use that template. This is my list of fields, and then this is my anchor setup. So I've got an anchor called list notes, which has actual anchors hanging off it, and that's all you need to do. And then from those two things, I can generate this whole pattern here and all of the code that goes with it. And they'll work and compile and run. And I'm actually running all of them at the moment So this is running all those individual, this is running 8 DNAs, 8 DHTs at the moment to do that, to run Chimera. So the plan is, nearly there, is that to create a new project such as Freckles, which is why I'm experimenting with that. I can now go back to here, drop this in, say new, so cloned, magically done. Right. If we go back to CRISPR, hopefully we've got a new. Right, I have to give it some projects. What do we call it? It's going to be, actually going to call this an application. And I need a folder called Freckles with something in it. Parts. Right. Yeah, it's just, no, it's projects, isn't it? Right, so if I copy that into here. I might need to rebuild this because the way it works. Yes, I do. All right, cool. So run that.
Phil, you haven't done anything with regards to a user interface. Where does that come from?
Okay, so for code generation, you can quite easily generate a data model and a state model and all that kind of data interaction stuff. How you want it to look, I don't know. So what I'm hoping to do very soon is have a look at this. So if we go to projects, I've got a link to it here somewhere. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I'm planning that this is the basic, like when you code generate, right? It'll give you this UI. And what it does is it uses the data model that you created. And if you use standard things like string booleans and stuff like that, it can automatically generate your UI. So what that'll give you is a very basic, you've got all your DNA and all the state management stuff's all done for you, all the hard code's done. Now you've got a generic UI that you can experiment with and try it out, and you can still use it. And then it's up to you as the developer to turn it into the UI you want, because there's not really any way to. Yeah, I haven't seen anything useful that actually does that. So this is going to be like stage one of that. Right. So if we go to Chimera-CRISPR now, we should have no. What have I done? No, named it wrong. Call it. Right, there we go. So here's our Freckles app that we just built by pressing clone. Press the buttons in there. Right. Magically, it just did all the hand coding stuff I did then. We can go look at the model for Freckles. And now we've got, here we go, root anchor, this type of Freckles, and all my Freckles hanging off there. So let's just set the permissions on that, make sure it's right. Really, I don't want anybody else to be able to update them or delete them. So we'll go that. We'll check the list of fields. Content, do we want a title? Nah, that'll do. Right, press the button here. Magic. Right, now we should be able to go terminal up in that folder. Let's have a look at the code, make sure it came out right. Freckles, yep. Okay. You'll notice that I'm using instead of using the published version because it's broken, because of the futures change, because 40 years down the track, software developers still can't understand the idea of dependencies and they break shit every day. So that's why it's like that. Right, so now we've got a Freckle entry there. Got all my functions. Delete Freckle, cool. Yep, so look at the handlers. All right. Read, update, delete, that's cool. Permissions. Right, only the author's allowed to update, only the author's allowed to delete. Fantastic. Right, so if we go cd DNA, what was it called? Freckle. All right. It also, while it's building, it also writes all the tests for you as well. So we can go and have a look in here in the test. You can see you've got the standard ones of create. Rebase is changing an entry from one anchor to another. Probably don't need it when you don't have the anchors, but that's okay for now. You can see that the tests are author only and author only delete. And what that does is that's actually looking for a validation failure. Because you see here, I've got Alice and Bob. So Alice writes the entry, and Bob tries to update it, which will cause a validation error. So I can prove that that's working as well. So still compiling. Right. We're just going to look at all that's happening. You guys using proc files? This is the best way to run multiple terminals. It's really cool. Just uses something called forming.
Yeah, you showed it to us last time.
Yeah, just making sure you use it. Looks like Posky's on the way. Got some power. Oh, we're up to 48 now, are we? Cool. All right. Interesting.
So I've got a lot of messages since I posted it on the forums, like people ask me when they can play with it. And I know you said not yet.
Yeah, no, because it's still too much manual stuff. But by next week, I'm doing a demo to somebody at Microsoft, so I need to get that shit over.
That is cool. What's Microsoft's interest though?
Sorry, ex-Microsoft.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's Mary's husband. So,
Hmm.
oops, no. Something didn't quite happen. All right, so I wonder why that happened.
So even I wanted to add something to what Jasid asked. When it is ready for others to start using, I would like to volunteer if you want to start documenting initial tutorials using this, and myself, I can
Yeah,
start using it. That would
that'd
be
be
great.
red. All right, cool. Let's do that. All right, there you go. That built. So let's run some tests, shall we? Let's see if they fixed the problem in 48. No, they didn't. All right, cool. So the update ones don't work properly because there's a problem with the update. But you can see that was the process, right? So literally, all the manual stuff I did, it would be a case of press that button, clone, put those details in, and then that's all that manual stuff I did is done. You can then go to the project, check that it's the way that you want it, and then build it. You're done. Literally a few minutes. See, Alexander? Yeah, so by next week, I'll have all that automated for you. So we'll be able to actually build something next week.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Because the other thing I haven't done yet is the automating the building of the store stuff. So all this, because these are literally all the same for everything as well. You have a state something in there, the actions that you perform, and then getters and setters. But now that you've forced me into building Freckles, I can now go and finish that off and finish that off for today. Which will mean that we can then do the chat stuff because I don't know if you guys know, but in the capabilities doesn't quite work in the Rust version. And there's a lot of crap that you have to do. You have to like do direct messaging and accept a message and unwrap it and then figure it out and then try and run it as this other person. And it's nightmarish. In the 2020 version, you don't have to do any of that. It's all done for you. You can just literally go run this function as me on your machine, and it will take care of it all for you.
Can you just give me a high-level version of what the 2020 version is, please, Phil? Is it not Rust?
No, it's in Rust. Yeah, it's just that the state management. So the Rust version uses kind of like a Redux state management inside it, and it caused a lot of problems. It was the wrong pattern for that, and no matter how much you jump up and down and tell people that they're wrong, sometimes it takes them a year to go, okay, we'll change that. So and plus we'd never done WASM before. We didn't really have much Rust experience. And the Rust programs that we got in were actually C++ developers who learned how to write Rust. That's completely the wrong way to do Rust. So now the new version, the WASM is lightning quick, and you can put heaps of stuff through it. And the HDK, we're not even sure if we're going to build a HDK because the WASM code is actually really simple to write now. And the state management inside is not, there's no Redux. There's a couple of LMTB databases that manage, we call them atomic rights and stuff like that. So the whole thing is, it's running, you know, close to order of magnitude of 10 to 100,000 times faster. I'm not kidding. It's actually
100,000.
Yeah, well, all the transactions at this point are taking less than a millisecond.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can barely measure it.
Yeah, so you won't get this where you go, oh, let's look at some. Wrong one. Let's pick one that's got stuff in it. Right. See that time to actually go and hit holochain and come back, that doesn't, it's not there anymore.
That's cool. Because I was tried looking up holochain 2020 and all I found was people talking about the price on.
Yeah, no, it's called holochain RSM. I can't remember what RSM stands for. So I'm a music producer, so I just see root mean squared all the time, but I can't.
No, it is RSM. I think it's state management. That I don't know.
Yeah,
something.
something
Okay.
statement. Yeah, right. But that is, so I'm supposed to be getting a demo this week as being a developer to build stuff on it. I've been fairly close with David Meister, who's done a lot of the work on it, and he showed me how to write. They can install DNAs now with Triorama as well. So it's getting pretty close. So my plan is that as 2020 gets close to being usable, this will be converted to 2020, and you'll literally be able to go and build your own apps super fast. So you end up with that. The only thing that's going to be a bit slower is building the front end, which you'll be able to do in here as well.
Yeah, I was wondering about your front end. Does it, obviously you can write your front end any way you want. Like you could use jQuery if you really wanted. But your, I guess, code generation tools, do they assume that you're going to be doing it a certain way?
Well, I don't do it. There's no UI code that's generated at this point. Okay. The only stuff that I'm going to generate is the is this state store stuff. This stuff, because this is a common pattern, and this is using Vuex, which is only good for Vue. So if you're going to use Vue, you can generate this. But you can use your own, whatever you like. But seriously, having used pretty much every JavaScript framework ever, the rest of them are shit.
Okay.
Compared to how awesome this is. I mean, you know, I just put in a full WYSIWYG editor because somebody built one on top of ProseMirror that fits into Vuetify. And the thing I really like about the Vuetify framework on top of Vue is that even though it's material design, it doesn't look like Google. It uses all the same concepts, but it's not. You don't look like you just built another Gmail.
Yeah. When you're using other people's code, like, is that an NPM package or something else?
All NPM.
And then, I remember talking to David about this a while back, and he said the trouble is when you compile NPM, you're going to get a different output every time on people's different machines. So the hashes aren't going to match. Is that not a problem anymore?
That's got nothing to do with the hashes for holochain.
Okay. So
that was ages ago when we were trying to write a JavaScript zone, which doesn't work because it's not deterministic.
So that was when we wanted to have the code, the backend code written in JavaScript, which is not a thing anymore. Okay, cool.
And the beautiful thing is the way that this works, you probably won't have to write any backend code except maybe for some validation code. I mean, if you want, you know, you can you know, if you're going to particularly validate something that's more than just permissions, you'll be able to edit your validation code in here. And this is literally the only place you'll need to write any code, because as I'm building along, the more patterns that I come across, and I've still literally only got the one, and I've done all of that with the one pattern. The next thing I am looking at doing though is, because I'm bringing in the profiles and stuff like that and starting to do membrane management, I'm going to have to look at a different way to do that. So that'll, and then when you've got the peer-to-peer, like the direct messaging stuff as well. So there'll be a few different patterns that built that, you know, if you want to do something completely custom, that's fine. But I reckon you will be able to build most apps like this.
How are you thinking about membrane management? Like, is there a community angle you're going with? Like, there's a certain number of people who can access these tools. Like, how are you thinking about it?
No, I'm not going to restrict anybody to use the tools and do what you like.
No, not the tools, but like if there's, I mean, membrane management in the sense, the person spinning up the app can control who enters like a certain number of tools, and you know, and starts creating like a membrane or a community around it. Is that how you're thinking about it?
I haven't come to any conclusions yet. I'm going to try it first and see how it actually works. Because if you add in the profile or the way to identify people, then I'm going to give you roles-based access here to be able to manage who can do that, much like the wiki works.
Yeah.
And then it's a matter of controlling who's in the actual. So, because what you can do is, because you can't stop people reading what's in the DHT, but you can stop them from further
joining.
Yeah. So I would like a way to forcibly uninstall a DHT from a node. So, you know, time bomb it or something.
Yeah, if you get bumped out of a membrane, you shouldn't be able to access it anymore. Because that's something I've been chatting about with Bosby. He's been thinking about the group agent pattern, and it's basically you creating membranes where, you know, a community would like to have one layer which is public, another layer which is members only, another layer which is governance, and so
yeah, that's where you have multiple DHTs. I think that the pattern of using DHTs is the way to do that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, like, let's say someone gets bumped out of, you know, governance, downgraded to members. Like, how will we actually enforce some of that? I guess you just revoke.
Well, that's the permissions, right? They won't be able to
read or write.
It's like they won't be able to make any further changes. They won't apply because they're not in that role anymore. You won't be able to stop them seeing what was in it previously. I mean, it would be nice to be able to have a forcible get rid of this person completely, like we never existed.
Yeah. But I guess that's fair. Like, if they have been part of the community until the date, they should have access to it, or, you know, can assume that they have access to the records anyway.
Yeah. So so what I'm doing, I'm building stuff as I need it, right when I need it, just to the minimum of what I need to get to what I need. And then as it gets more complicated, I go back and refactor stuff. But the plan is that I'll finish off the profile stuff, so we'll have this ability to switch between different groups based on the I can't get past the video. So we can switch easily between different apps and have the different lists of people in each group. Then once I've done that, then I'm going to do the cloning thing, because I need that very soon.
And maybe this could be the last question before we close for today. How are you thinking about the project overall? Like, do you want to like build this to some kind of enterprise level and then release it, or roll it out to the widgety users as you keep going? Yeah, how you think? What's your plans for that?
My plans are I'm going to build what I need. I'm going to build a whole bunch of apps for the music industry and for producers and that sort of stuff, so that we can get my friends, so we can organize events, write music, and not have to use Fuckbook and Instagram, right? So that's literally what I'm going to do. And if people want to use it, then come along. It's going to be an open source project, minimal support at this point.
Got it. Okay.
But Ankit said he wants to write documentation, stuff like that. I mean, that'd be awesome. I'd love to go through showing him how to do it, and if he wants to document how to do it to help the community out.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's just using this to build things that I need, because I've got like 30 apps that I want to build, and I want to build them fast, and I want to be able to change them quickly by changing the root that they're all derived from. Like all that anchor stuff. If I had to if I had to write that into every single app, right, that would have taken ages.
Yeah.
But I literally just went and changed the root, redid the regeneration for them all. It all works.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is really cool, just being able to go manage the list of fields in a thing, right? And then press a button and you're done, rather than going in there and having to change in 7 different places to make sure your code's all up to date. And,
head off now, but thanks for that, Phil. Do you know POSP will be next week doing his REA
He should
stuff?
be. Yeah, he should be. I'm gonna have a chat with him. It should be. Yeah, so it should be on. I'll pop a message on the forum.
All right, let me know.
Yeah, I will.
We'll
Thanks,
do the
Phil.
clone team next week and build something.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Like whenever you're ready, Phil, with some of that stuff.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. Bye.